Welcome to Homeward. I'm Jim Burns, and I am so happy that you've joined us today. We are doing everything at Homeward to help families succeed. We do it through 4 values: strong marriages, confident parents, healthy leaders, and empowering kids. And that's what it's all about. Today is going to be a great day. We're going to talk to you about drawing closer together with spiritual intimacy. You probably haven't heard a podcast about developing spiritual intimacy in a relationship, maybe for a very long time. And that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm so grateful to our faithful subscribers, and you can subscribe. You can subscribe to the podcast, and you'll get it all the time. One podcast listener did say, and I'm a little worried about this. She said that her and her husband listen to the podcast in the shower together. And so I have questions for you on several levels on what that's all about, but I'm not sure I want to go there. But anyway, it's so great to get the comments. And by the way, you can go to our voice line and give us comments. You can also ask questions because we're going to do a show with Q&A, and you can just go to 1-800-397-9725, and you can leave your message. If it's going to be a question for the show, you got to be pretty short and concise, and you'll hear us talk about that. Anyway, today, Ted Cunningham, he was our very first guest, and I loved the program that we did with him, and now we get him again. So it's so great to have Ted back with us. Our conversations, like I said, going to center around spiritual intimacy in marriage. And guys, don't worry about it. Intimacy, it's a word us guys don't use that much, but intimacy just means connection. And you know what? We all want, connection. And I think connection is a special, important aspect of marriage. But again, probably the least developed area of intimacy is spiritual intimacy. I think especially for guys. My wife has often said that for her, spiritual intimacy is important. I'm not saying that it probably was for me at the beginning. And my friends Gary and Barb Rossberg wrote a book called The 5 Sex Needs of Men and Women, which is a great title, a lot better title than any of the books I've written, and better title than probably even Ted's books. And he has some great titles in his books. But, the 5 sex needs of men and women. You know what the 4th sex need is of a woman? Spiritual intimacy. Kathy says when we're speaking together, Kathy will sometimes say, to be spiritually intimate is sexy. I don't think us guys are thinking that, but I think that is something for us. So today, we've got Ted Cunningham with us. I'm so excited he's here again, and he truly is one of the big inspirations. I love this man. I love who he is. I love how he communicates. Honestly, I kind of have a pastor crush on him. He's a pastor at Woodland Hills Community Church in Branson, Missouri. He's also a comedian on the Date Night Comedy Tour, and he's also one of the lead coaches for the American Association of Christian Counselors, and as well as all kinds of other things that he does. He's written great books, and today we're going to talk about a book that he wrote that I love this book. I just went through it again, and it's called Greater Joy Together, and it's actually a 52-week devotional. A lot of times on a podcast, you don't really talk about a devotional, but some of the nuggets out of this is just incredible. So, Ted, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me back. Here we are, round 2.
Great to be with you. Of course, you're married to Amy. You have 2 adult children, and there you are in Branson, Missouri. I'm looking at you. People can see this on the YouTube channel also, but it's mainly a podcast. But you're out. It's kind of cold today in Branson, and I'm warm here in Southern California.
You Southern Californians are always bragging about your weather. Always bragging about the weather. I have to start something, though, off with you, Jim. I have to, just because my wife is on the other side of the house, and we've read Doing Life with Your Adult Children. And I got to tell you, with your adult child, and my wife, the whole keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out. Obviously, I tell people that's worth the price of the book. Best subtitle of a book I've ever heard. And we have a freshman in college. And I'm always quoting that. I'm going, we're supposed to keep the welcome mat out, keep our mouths shut. And my wife will always say, Jim was not applying that to 18-year-old college freshmen. I go, I think he was, and I think we need to lean in. Is that applied to 18-year-old college freshmen?
Well, there's that time between Amy's not going to be mad at me on this one. Kind of between 18 and 22, when you're still paying for their tuition, you're paying for everything. There are times when you need to. You just do it differently. You need to say, "Hey, do I have permission to talk into your life? To speak into your life, and do it at the right time, not in the heat of the battle." So I think she's right. I think you're right. But it's a process of moving them quickly to adulthood. And even at 18, you've got to give them the passport to adulthood. But we're not talking about that topic.
Hey, but
we're
look at what
today.
you just did. You're a counselor who just made both people feel good in a debate and an argument. You're both right. Oh, Jim,
Hey, you know
you're
what?
good.
That happened in 1922 in politics. It hasn't happened since then. It definitely hasn't happened, in our lifetime of politics. Um, One of the ideas of a devotional, what I love is that, like your devotional, Greater Joy Together. Basically, I think you can do this in 15 or 20 minutes. And so, really, we're not asking people to be on their knees forever and ever. What we're asking them to do is spend 15, 20 minutes a week connecting
Yeah.
spiritually and having some conversation. You say that marriage satisfaction is a choice, not an outcome. You said that in the very first devotional. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I always love to ask couples at events, "Hey, raise your hand if you met online." And they shoot their hands up. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
timid because they don't want people around them. I go, perfectly legal and acceptable way to meet someone. But a good match is a good start, but it's not a
Yeah.
guarantee of a thriving marriage. And it's usually
Yeah.
online daters that start, nodding at me like this. Absolutely. We know that. It was how we met. But if we want to go deeper in this relationship and we want to enjoy life together, that's not something that was guaranteed on the front end. It's
Right.
something we
Right.
decide every day. And so the
Yeah.
idea behind this devotional was you read a short 4 to 500 word devotion, which is, 5 or 6 minutes. And then the last three parts, hey, let's talk about it, let's do something about it, let's pray about it. That the goal of that was to take pieces of
Yeah.
that throughout the week. So none of it seemed like you're right. We got to sit down for 20 minutes, get serious here right now, and then it's done until next week. It was something we wanted you to
Yeah.
take throughout the whole week.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's something that's doable for everybody. I mean, we're all busy, but we're going to talk about that in a moment because it's one of the principles in your book. But we can find 15, 20 minutes to do something so key and so important that will actually enhance the relationship in a bigger way than a lot of other things that we could be doing by
Yeah.
scrolling or being on the screen or doing
Yeah.
all the other things. And I love as you created this resource. They're short, they're practical, and they're so helpful. One of the things that you said, and we actually did pretty much the first podcast on this, is you said it. It is time to get serious about laughing together. And in some ways, it might be a summary of what we did on that previous podcast, a number of episodes ago. But I'd love to hear what you mean by that. How do you get serious about having laughter together?
Yeah, we know from research that couples who use laughter to manage stress, work through difficult conversations, not only report higher levels of marital satisfaction,
Mm,
but they stay together longer. Now, I
yeah,
always want to tell the husbands, if you're going to use laughter to work through difficult conversations, timing is
right,
everything.
right.
And you have to
Yeah,
put some time between the event that you
yeah,
find humorous and the punchline and it may
yeah,
be weeks or months before
yeah.
your spouse finds that funny. But everybody has a shared
Right,
sense of humor. And
right,
what Amy and I find funny, you might not find funny, another couple might not
right.
find funny, but we are always going after it. I always tell husbands, if you want to get started on and fast track finding your shared sense of humor, stop trying to be funny and just look
Yeah,
for it. It's
yeah,
everywhere. And just point
yeah.
it out
Right,
and talk about it.
right. Right. No, that's good. I think when I first got married, hanging out with a bunch of guys, our funny was sarcasm.
Yeah.
Kathy didn't do sarcasm well,
Amy doesn't
so
do
I would do
sarcasm.
sarcasm. I thought by being sarcastic, like I was with my good guy friends, and we enjoyed it, that she would enjoy that. She didn't like that. She was overly sensitive about it, and I didn't understand that, and we'd fumble. So there really is a way to do fun and laughter, and there's a way not to do fun and laughter. We need to make sure we understand their laughter response or their laughter love language, if you would.
Yeah, and so my wife has what I call a silent patriotic laugh. When she finds something funny, she places her hand over her heart, she leans forward, and nothing comes out. And my
That's
goal
great.
is to get that laugh out of her
That's
every
awesome.
single
Yeah.
day. I'm
Yeah.
successful 5 to 6 times a week, but I go for it. And sometimes it
Yeah.
results to a smile, a cackle, a smirk, and I'll take it.
Yeah.
But I'm going
Yeah.
for it. And that's, you and I both have a passion for helping couples be more intentional with
Yeah.
everything they do in their
Yeah.
relationship. And for some reason, laughter seems to be the thing we're going to wing. We'll just
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
comes up. No, go after it. Look for it.
That's good.
Call it
No,
out.
No, it's really good. You were speaking at a Homeward event, and I was sitting right behind Amy, and you were saying things that were really funny. And I thought, now she's heard these probably before. And I watched her. She laughed. I was like, wow, she's laughing at Ted's stuff, and she's had to have heard that before. So I'm impressed. Okay. Hey, one of the things that I love, you wrote this in the devotional, and you talked about avoiding marital drift, and I think every couple can at one time or another say, "Yeah, we have drift, and we need to." Kathy, in my life, is drifting and making course corrections, drifting and making course corrections. That's kind of the biography of our life. What can a couple do if they are drifting, and how do you know what some of those signs are?
Yeah. So the key about drift is no one wakes up today and says, "Hey, I'm going to drift in my marriage." Drift is just we're no longer deciding, we're no longer choosing, we're no longer being intentional. And it's kind of a wake up call. And I always tell couples, and you know this, when we do seminars and retreats, the worst thing you can do for your marriage is leave this retreat and say, these are the 15 things we're going to change immediately. No, we tell couple one thing. Pick one thing. And this is kind of
Mhm.
like Dave Ramsey's debt snowball. Start with the
Yeah,
lowest debt, get that gone, and then that gives you enthusiasm,
yeah,
energy to tackle the next
yeah,
one. Pick
yeah.
one thing you need to be intentional
Good.
with in
Yeah,
your marriage. Get good at that, whether it be laughter, quality time, just
yeah,
speaking words of high value over one another, maybe non-sexual touching. Pick
yeah.
one and be intentional with it. And then when you see that start to change in your marriage, that'll give you enthusiasm to go after all these other areas.
Yeah, no, that's really good. You just said the word non-sexual touching. I think there's some men who are listening that didn't know that that was a possibility, in terms of their drive, if you would. But let's go to the marriage bed. Let's talk about the marriage bed. I mean, I'm shocked how many people come to me and say, "That's a problem for us, the physical intimacy. Um, it just is a block. It's a wedge." How do you help somebody build deeper physical intimacy, so that they can also have a deeper spiritual intimacy in their life?
Yeah, Michael Seitzman has great stuff on this that I share with couples
Mm,
all the time. There's three types of sexual desire in a relationship,
mm,
in a marriage. There's initiating desire, like where you go after it and you desire it. And obviously, men are the highest percentage of that. But
mm.
you also have receptive desire. Like, I'm not really thinking about it, but once I get into it, I realize, oh, I wish
Yeah,
we did this more. And then that reluctant
yeah,
desire. Most
yeah,
couples are the receptive desire. And whenever he taught that the
yeah,
first time, I went, there it is again. You have to be intentional. Like, you have to choose a night this week and say, we're going to have physical intimacy. We're
mm,
going to have sex as a couple. When you choose it, he uses the illustration of coffee. He gets up in the morning and he's initiating desire. He's got to have coffee. But then he said, Chinese food
so
for
good.
me is receptive desire. I don't ever think about
Oh,
Chinese food, but once I'm eating it, I'm like, I like this. This is
yeah,
good. I should
yeah,
have this more often. And I
yeah,
think, again, be intentional. Like, you don't have to
yeah,
ask a newlywed, hey, are you guys having enough sex? They're having plenty of sex. It's the
right,
couple married 5, 10, 15 years
yeah,
that's no
right,
longer intentional with
right,
this, and they're
right,
drifting in the
yeah.
marriage bed.
No, that makes it's amazing that you can drift in the marriage bed because sex is meant for pleasure. God created sex. He sees it, as good. He sees it as very good. I had an experience once where I was speaking at an event, and a pastor that you would know, he's a pastor of one of the most mega churches in America. He was also speaking, and I'd come down to have breakfast. Kathy was still sleeping. She wouldn't make the 6 a.m. Amy time period. I'll just tell you that. And he was there, and he and his wife invited me over, and she said, "Oh, I'm so excited! You're talking on teaching children healthy sexuality, and I'm going to go. They have 5 kids, and and she said, we have sex every Wednesday." And I see the pastor just stop and go, I can't believe that he just told Jim Burns that, or she just told Jim Burns that we have sex every Wednesday. And she said, we schedule it. And of course, I have a smile on my face like crazy. And his eggs were on the way to his mouth, and they've now stopped. And he's just shaking his head. And I said, well, explain that. And he said, life was busy and things were going crazy. And so we just decided we're going to schedule every Wednesday. We hope it's more often, but
Yeah.
Wednesday is, that day. And I loved that because here was somebody who was being proactive about it. It's that receptive that you say, they were Did they want to have more intimate relationship? Sure, they just didn't schedule it. So they schedule it. I suggest to people all the time that they do that, and I think that's a good key thing. Great idea. Now, we live in a busy world. In fact, I would say that the breathless pace in which most of us live, you know, in does not in breaks down any kind of intimacy a lot of times. So we're so busy. In fact, I think busy people. We always look at busy people as healthy people, but sometimes busy people are broken people, and
Mm,
that's because they're busy. Busy families don't do as well. Busy marriages, couples, and you have a devo in that book that just simply says, "Slow down."
yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So our friend Gary Smalley said the gap between what we expect and what we get is, stress. That's just the
Yeah.
stress of life. He said, but stress is just a socially acceptable term for angry. And he
Mm,
said, you're going to find people with the short fuse are the ones that are running too fast. And
yeah.
so
Oh,
intimacy is a very slow word. Like if,
yeah.
if I'm running out the door and Amy goes, I need to say something, and I go, talk fast. She's like, yeah, no thanks, pal. I'm not gonna talk fast. What
Right.
I have to
Right.
say
Right.
needs time. And
Yeah.
so for us, that's the first part
Yeah.
of the devotional. It's just it's building in margin to say, hey, the pace we're
Yeah.
running, we can slow down. If we can't find 15 to 20
Yeah.
minutes, we've got bigger
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. No, it's so true. John Mark Comer said, "Hurry is violence to our soul,"
Mm,
and I would even add that if we're in too much of a hurry and we're too busy all the time, that it's violence to our marriage relationship. We can't do it. And I'm not saying we can all move to some Branson, Missouri, and live in a commune someplace. You live in a commune, I'm sure, but live in a commune someplace. But and hum. I mean, we got to figure out how to do it in the midst of a life that is packed, but we need those times, those moments to do that. It was that great theologian Vince Lombardi, coach of the Green Bay
mm.
Packers, who said, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." I think we're overly fatigued. I know when I'm fatigued, I'm a lousy husband, I'm a lousy father, I'm a lousy Christ follower. If I'm always fatigued, if I'm running too fast.
Yeah.
And so sometimes as a couple, we can say, what can we do to slow down? I was at my grandson's baseball game on Saturday, and I was talking to a young mom, and she said, "Oh my gosh, we started at 7 this morning, and we had two basketball games, and then we're now at this game. This is only 1:30, and I can see their son, and their son is just dragging playing baseball." And I went, "Where did it stop being fun? Somewhere probably after the 7:30 basketball game, and I think we just are doing sometimes too much, and then we wonder why we're not connecting."
That's why I love to use the illustration of when we go to the airport with a bag that we know we got to the 50-pound mark, but then we put it up on the scale and they go, oh, it's 48 pounds. We never have the thought, what could I do to take a couple pounds out of this and put in my carry on to make the bag lighter? Our immediate thought is, I got 2 pounds to play with. I
Right,
can
right.
stuff more stuff in here. That's how we live our lives. That's how we live our days with our
Oh,
schedules and our
oh,
routines. If I got 15 free minutes, I got to pack it in. Well, I got to get
no,
something in there. No, just let the
perfect
15 minutes
illustration.
be free.
Yeah, yeah, perfect illustration. Sometimes I'm busy, so busy that one of the things that kind of melts is something that you wrote in your devotional, and I again, like, I love the book. I'm at the end, I'm gonna tell everybody to go buy it. But, and this was on kindness. I mean, kindness matters. You quoted a proverb, and I love this proverb: "Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul, healthy for the body." I want you to talk about kindness and how kindness can make a difference in a relationship.
Yeah, so it was something again that we practiced in our home from the very beginning with our kids. Honor. You come in from the world's throwing plenty at us during the day. When you walk into this home, this is a safe place. This is a place where we speak words of high value over one another. And two of the ways we practiced kindness in our home and still do in our marriage, one was with the honor list. Again, Gary Smalley taught us this. Keep a
Yeah,
list of all the reasons why your
yeah,
spouse is highly valuable.
yeah.
When I first learned that, Gary's list for Norma was 4 pages long. And
Remember
he
that.
says, after conflict or disagreement, I come in here, I pick up the honor list, I start reading through it. I don't have to get off the first page before I'm reminded.
Yeah,
So, one
right,
thing is to have the kind thoughts for someone. What's
right.
better is to gift it to them. What's even better than that is to speak it out loud in front of family and
Yeah,
friends.
right,
So, that was one way
right.
we did. The second way we did it was with the honor bombardment. We would
Yeah,
sit at the
love it.
table each night, pick a member of the family,
Yeah.
and round we'd go, just bombarding that person with kind words. And it was overwhelming at times. Tears were
Right.
flowing at times. But I think the reason we get so
Mm.
emotional when people start speaking kindness to us is because it's so void in our world today. We're quick with the
Mm.
criticism. We're quick
Right.
with the,
Right.
being snippy with each other. But when someone sits down and goes, "You're valuable to me, and here's why," and then they start listing it, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
build uh, a relationship quality that few see.
Yeah. It's the Bible says, talking about love is patient, but then right after that it says love is kind.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I understood it at the beginning of my marriage. Kathy, would say, "Do you love me?" at the beginning of the marriage. And I would like, "Well, of course I love you. And if I change my mind, I'll let you know." But she didn't think that was all that good. What she really meant was, be kind to me,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
and kindness and even love are sometimes intermixed. And I think, so many of our listeners need to be people of kindness. And um, a friend, probably a mutual friend of ours, Shanti Feldhahn, she wrote a book on kindness. And what I realized by reading her book on kindness was that what I needed to do was start my day proactively by saying, I'm going to be kind to Kathy today.
Mm.
What can I do as a random act of kindness? Didn't have to be expensive. It didn't have to be a big thing. But when I show kindness to her, what she's translating is, you love me.
Yeah.
Not interesting. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Now I know all of our listeners aren't empty nesters, and I'm definitely an empty nester now. Although we boomeranged 8 times, so we'd go empty nest, back up, whatever. And so we didn't we weren't empty nesters at as young an age as most empty nesters. But you wrote a chapter on that for any, and really for anybody, because what we found when I wrote a book on empty nest, I found that a lot of the men and women had never prepared for the empty nest. But you gave a great devotional on the empty nest. I was so impressed with what you had to say. Uh, what do you say to people who are empty nesters? They're still trying to, relate together with spiritual intimacy.
Well, I always say before you hit the empty nest, prioritize your marriage in the home.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
empty nest isn't as much of a shock after you've invested everything, time,
Yeah.
resources, your energy into kids and left
Yeah.
nothing for one another. So
Yeah.
while the kids are
Right.
home, save some for each other.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Amy and I, uh, we have found, as our friend says, you're going to change a lot over the course of your marriage, and we
Yeah.
have changed. The empty nest has changed us, but it's actually given us so much more free time at night, especially to where,
Yeah.
uh, we don't date every night out, but at home we've created some special spaces around the house to just enjoy
Yeah.
conversation, slow down. We're tea drinkers, so
Yeah.
we drink a lot of tea together, and we're just
Yeah.
finding ourselves in a season where we're able to be even more intentional. And the key for
Yeah.
us is goals for the future, not
Mm.
just this is what it is for the rest of our lives and we don't know what
Yeah.
it looks like. We're just going to kind of play it out. No, we're still setting marriage
Love it.
goals and
Yeah.
prioritizing,
Yeah.
time together within all that.
No, I love that I mean, you're really, singing a song that I speak about a lot these days, because, you have 50% of people say that the empty nest is not going well for them.
Mm,
And, the graying of divorce. So you've got people at 50 and over who are getting divorced. I think if they would just put energy, if they would do exactly what you just said, that they could get that spark back. They could rekindle their romance. They could rekindle the relationship. But again, it takes it. We keep going back to the idea that it takes some intentionality, and I
absolutely.
love not only what you're saying, but also what you and Amy are doing. Uh, you have a devotional, and it's called "What is the Secret to a Life Giving Marriage?" So, what is the secret to a life giving marriage in your mind?
Well, what they're practicing, if they pick the book up and they start taking the time to ask one another, and I've found that when you get into the interest of your spouse's interest, when you show interest, when you light up and prioritize your spouse,
Hmm.
it's almost like you start fighting over uh, helping your spouse
Yeah.
win every argument, helping your
Yeah.
spouse uh, share what's going on, and living in that judgment free zone of being able to
Yeah.
share your heart with,
Yeah.
freedom to be who you are. And so for
Right.
me, I want to be life giving and refreshing, because I don't want to be celebrated at 30 or 50 years of marriage with a card that says you made it. Making it for us is not the goal.
That's
Right?
so good.
Making it in a refreshing,
Mm.
life-giving, and
Yeah.
thriving marriage is the
Right.
goal.
Yeah, no, that's so good. So to do that, it means you got to put energy and effort into it, and that's why I'm telling every one of you to go out and buy Ted's book. It's just a great book, and then do what he's telling you to do. Spend 15, 20 minutes a week coming together in spiritual intimacy. Okay. And that's going to be the difference. And Ted, I just want to thank you so much for being on. I've got a couple things I want to say, but thank you again for being on it. Great wisdom and insight. And I love your book.
Thanks, Jim. Jim's always
Okay.
since we lost Gary about 8 years ago.
Hmm.
There's been a void in marriage and family space, but
Yeah.
everywhere I go, I quote you at every retreat,
Hmm.
every conference, every date night, and so you are a hero, not just to couples, but to a lot of
Yeah.
us that are out there
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
be champions for marriage.
Well, thank you so much. You know, this idea today that we talked about spiritual intimacy, I think it's an important thing. And like I said, it's probably the least developed area of intimacy. And for Kathy and I, it wasn't something that got started. Now, remember, we didn't come from Christian homes, so we had no role models of this. Our parents weren't bad people; they just didn't do this, right? So we had to go find mentors, and I encourage you to make sure that you find mentors. And we found a number of mentors that we stayed close with. This one couple, we were at their house one night, and we probably did it 4 times, maybe 5 times a year. And we were talking about parenting. They had 3 kids. We have 3 kids. Their kids were older. They were doing well. He's a Christian leader in the world, one of the main Christian leaders. And they had kind of brought us into their world and kind of out of the spur. It was just off my head. It wasn't on our list. Kathy and I always kind of prepared a list. And I said, "Hey, what do you do for spiritual connection?" And I actually expected that they were the kind of people that probably got on their knees for several hours a day and prayed. And he said, "We spend 15, 20 minutes a week in proactive spiritual intimacy." And the thing in my head, which I talk to myself all the time, was like, well, how spiritually wimpy is that? Then I thought, well, Kathy and I aren't doing that. I mean, we're both committed to ministry. We're both doing ministry. Probably prayed with others more than we prayed together. Prayed at night with kids, things like that. But it wasn't as connecting. And we went on and asked other questions. And as we got in the car, literally, I was driving out of the driveway, and Kathy said, "I want that. I want to do what they do." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And she said, "I want to do that 20-minute thing." And so, I didn't want to say, well, I'm not sure I want to. And I didn't want to do another Bible study because we're already involved in too many Bible studies. No offense. But I said, I'm open to that, but I want you to kind of take the lead. Why don't you, that when we start this, why don't you take some lead on, do we read scripture? Do we read something inspirational? Because that's what they did. She said, I'll do that. So we made a commitment to spend 20 minutes a week. And you know what? It was life changing. It was game changing.
Mm.
And we challenged couples and we challenged them all the time. We started speaking to a lot of couples who are in ministry because they struggle with it too. And we would challenge them to what we call the closer challenge. And so that's the closer challenge. I want you to go out, get Ted's devotional book, and I want you to consider spending 15, 20 minutes a week. Okay. Now, again, if you're past that, fantastic. You're already doing well, right? But it's the discipline of doing it. You know what? I honestly do think it's a game changer for your life, for your marriage, if you just take that kind of time. Now, again, you may have a spouse who's not as excited about that. So again, that's why you use the book. You read something, you go, wow, that was enjoyable. Plus, it was short. Ted's book has 400 words to it. You can do that in a very short time period. Every week for us isn't like lights, camera, flashes, stars, rainbows. Sometimes it's like, okay, we did it, but I don't remember what I ate last week, and yet it nourishes me for today, right? So it's the same way. So I want to encourage you that if you want to grow spiritually, make the effort to spend 15, 20 minutes. And that may mean that you're going to be 15 or 20 minutes less online or whatever you do. But there is time. and don't do it when your kids are right in the midst of it. If your kids are at home, then, set aside after they go to bed, do it before they get up, whatever it might be, but you can find a time to do that. So again, I hope you'll do that. And if you'll do that, I want you to let me know. You can call our voice line. The number's going to come up in a minute. You can call our voice line and you tell me, hey, this is working, because I really am excited about that opportunity. And I hope that you will subscribe to the Homeward Podcast. We're on every podcast platform available worldwide, and you can find us no problem. And I'm really honored that you listened today. I truly am. And please tell others about the podcast. You can tell it has great content, like with what we've just said with Ted. And then also, don't forget to check our sister podcast. It's with Paige Klingham-Pill. She is amazing, and her title of her podcast is called Embracing the Season, Parenting the Littles and Understanding Teens. And so I encourage you to take a look at what Paige is doing as well. So I hope you have a great week, and we'll be back next week. There you go.